I wanted to share today my answers to the most commonly asked questions I receive on float therapy or sensory deprivation tanks. So if you follow me and you've seen other of my videos before, you will know that I'm a big proponent of float tanks and float therapy. And I post about it so much on social media just because it's really made a difference in my life. So I get a lot of questions about float tanks. And I'm gonna go ahead and address those right here, right now. So the first thing people wanna know is, how does it work? So I would encourage you, because a lot of people do come to me and say that floating is too expensive. I would encourage you to hop on your local Groupon and type in float therapy or float tank and try to find a Groupon deal for a local float business. But instead of purchasing that Groupon through Groupon, go ahead and call the float tank center and ask them if they will honor the Groupon just at the store. Because it's been brought up to me that generally Groupon tends to kind of screw over the small town business. So please do that first and foremost. Then, when you're getting ready for your float, just try not to overthink it. Don't get all up in your head. I know it's something that's kind of weird. You know, you're gonna be floating for 60 to 90 minutes in total darkness, pitch black. It's just you and your mind, and that can really bug out a lot of people. So I encourage you to just kind of like chill and to make peace with the idea that you're doing something that's really good for you. And it's going to help you the more you do it as well. So give yourself a pat on your back for attempting to do something like this. And also know that before you hop into the tank, you are going to strip naked. That's why if you follow me on social media and you see me floating, I'm not wearing a swimsuit, I'm floating naked, and you can see me naked in most of my posts. And that's because I'm not trying to like fool you guys. I'm trying to show you the reality of floating. So you're gonna get naked. There's normally in most float centers, they have a shower connected to the float room that you're gonna be floating in. So you're gonna shower, you're going to strip yourself of any shampoo, conditioners, makeup, any fragrances or lotions that could contaminate the water. So you're gonna hop in there, wash yourself off. Be sure that before you hop into the shower, you put in the earplugs. Some people just recommend it as just like an optional thing, but for me, it's totally something I must do, because if I don't do it, I get water in my ears, and that's just not fun. That doesn't make the experience something that is enjoyable or peaceful at all. So put in the earplugs before you hop into the shower. And then also know that most float tanks are pods. A newer thing is they're creating float rooms. And I floated all over the country in several different kinds of styles of float tanks and pods. I've floated in ones that are meant for like people with disabilities who might be in a wheelchair that find it hard to be in a confined space. I floated in a couples float tank where me and my partner floated together. I floated in pods when I first originally started floating, and most recently I've been floating in rooms, which make it very spacious. So if somebody has claustrophobia, a float room would probably work best for you. And not only that, but if you do find that you have claustrophobia, there are sliding doors or hinged doors on your room, so that if you have any concern about like freaking out while you're inside, you can prop the door open or slide it open a little bit, just so you have that like fresh air coming in, and you know, like you have the option to get out. And speaking about that, you do have the option to get out. Just because you signed up for a 60 or 90-minute float doesn't mean you are supposed to be there the whole time. If you are having a horrible experience in it, by all means, please get out. You know, do yourself that favor and just step out of it and come back maybe at a different point in your life where you feel like maybe a little bit more calmed out and at peace with the idea of floating. And not only that as well, but if you are afraid of, you know, like being completely alone with your mind or being in a tight space that's dark, every float tank that I've ever been in has ambient light and sound, and you can control that from inside the tank. So you can press a button to turn on some kind of like mood light or mood music, just so that you could get comfortable. And you can turn it on and off at any time while you are in the float tank. What I do when I'm in the float, and I've spoke about this in other videos as well, is I focus on my breathing. So I inhale for the count of 4 or 5, maybe even longer the further along I get with my breathing exercises while floating. So I'll breathe in for a count of 5, pause, and then exhale for a count of 5, pause, and then I keep repeating that. And I use my float time as a time to really just try to quiet my mind, try to lessen all of the crazy monkey mind thoughts that are constantly running through my head. And I also find sometimes that, hey, you know, like sometimes, how many times can I say sometimes? That sometimes when I am focusing on my breathing, what will happen is I will start thinking different thoughts. You know, my mind will start to wander. And I encourage anybody who is doing this, instead of beating yourself up for, oh shit, there I go, my mind's wandering, I'm not meant to do this, this is crazy. Take a step back and just get back into your breathing. Don't beat yourself up, because that's counterproductive. That doesn't help the experience whatsoever. Just get back into your breathing, calm down, and just really try to melt into it as much as you can. Another thing too is I also like to really focus in on listening to the sounds of my body. I can hear my heartbeat very easily while I'm floating. I like to listen to the sound of my breathing. It almost sounds like a tide coming in and washing out on the beach of an ocean. Also, which is really bizarre and wild, but if you get quiet enough and you pay attention enough, you can listen to the sounds of your eyeballs rolling back and forth in your head. And that's really wild to me, and it's something that I think is absolutely cool. I mean, we are a work of wonder, and to be able to hear that and to be quiet enough finally where you can hear something like that is quite beautiful to me. So I encourage you to focus on your breathing, and also to focus on the beautiful sounds that your body makes, even if it is farting, because let's be honest, people fart in the tank, and that's okay. And that also leads me into saying that float tanks, good float tanks that is, have very good filtration, and they also use ozone to filter the water between visits. So I wouldn't be concerned about the safety and the cleanliness of the water. And if you are concerned, by all means, ask the float center what their filtration system is like. Another thing is sometimes while I float, while you are floating effortlessly, and you don't really have to try it all to sustain yourself and to float on top of the water, which is very good for your body. It helps to relax your muscles and your neck and your back and your joints and everything. What I do find is occasionally my neck will start to hurt just for whatever reason. And the cool thing about it is any float tank I've been in has a little flotation device, around circular halo that you can set your head in, and you can just float effortlessly, and you don't need to feel that pain of, you know, your neck kind of like giving to into the water. And you can do it for about 60 to 90 minutes. I know that I floated down at Crashes Center in the LA area, and I floated for 3 hours. And that leads me into the whole idea of, hey, am I gonna drown if I fall asleep in this float? Because I do fall asleep quite often in my floats. And the thing is you're not going to drown. Anytime that I feel kind of like a little like tinge or whatever, that wakes me up, and I'm not gonna roll over onto my side and drown by any means. The water and the salt is enough to keep you afloat, and should you fall asleep, you don't have to worry whatsoever about drowning. And finally, I recommend floating at least once a month. If you can make that a more frequent thing, that's great. I don't imagine that floating often is going to be a bad thing by any means. I think it can only help the more often that you do it. and ways to get floating at a discount price. I know some float centers will do memberships, so you can purchase a membership and you can get a discounted price for a float by doing so. And you might even want to inquire with your float center if you can volunteer or do anything like that to also get reduced floats as well. If you found this video helpful, if you love floating, if you have questions, please comment, like the video, subscribe, share it with a friend, spread the love. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. Follow me on social media, holler at me, don't be a stranger. Thanks so much, bye.